If you're looking for a build where you're basically one-shotting everything that you hit with your giant sword, then this might be the build for you. Our primary attacks are Void Cleave and Erasing Strike, which are both void melee attacks that get a lot of benefit from flat added damage. They both have 400% effectiveness of flat added damage, making them both scale very similarly. We crank this up to 11 with the new sword Eternal Eclipse, which gives your next void melee attack a big chunk of flat fire damage, and your next fire melee attack a big chunk of flat void damage. Now this looks like it's okay, it should only add a little bit of damage to your next void melee attack, but the good thing is that Void Cleave can become both a fire and a void attack for just one passive point. And so this allows you to get both benefits from the sword. Basically for every Void Cleave we'll have about like a 2-second cooldown on Void Cleave, and this weapon has a 2-second cooldown as well. This is a new unique item which appears to drop off of the Black Sun boss fight, and I got lucky enough to get one on my very first one, non-empowered, but I've heard some people have had a little bit more of a hard time, and you don't necessarily need this weapon to play the build. Like obviously I played the build all the way up to this point without that weapon, but it's really awesome. So some quick pros and cons. The pros are you get some big damage and really easy leveling. It is just really smooth feeling. You wipe out a lot of things, and whenever you're critting, you're basically just annihilating enemies. And you also have really insane crowd control with Anomaly. You can basically just and turn off any single boss. You can just remove them basically from the game, and this allows you to stop them from using a big killer move that you want people to get out of the way of, or anything that's even just annoying. It just literally stops them. Now some attacks will kind of continue after the Anomaly is done, so you need to be careful of them, but Anomaly is really strong. And the last pro is that you get to wield a big honking sword and just hit people really hard. What else is there, man? Now the cons to this is, as a Void Knight, you're not necessarily the most tanky of all the classes, but when your enemies are all dead, that doesn't really matter too much. You're also melee, so that's kind of a downside as well. But do note that with lunge, anytime you're lunging, you are invulnerable, and so getting up into people's faces is pretty easy to do. A quick overview of the skills that we have. Obviously we have Void Cleave and Erasing Strike, Lunge, Volatile Reversal, and Anomaly. And these all kind of work together to create a really cool, fun kit. Now Void Cleave does have a cooldown of base 4 seconds, but we're going to get cooldown on our gear, and some of our kit gives us more cooldown, so that we're going to get it down to about 2 seconds, which lines up with the sword very well. I'm going to show a quick passive overview of what's going on. I'm not really going to explain all of the points per se, and you notice the passive tree is like missing quite a bit of points because it's kind of low level. If you want to go for more damage, there's definitely some more damage there that you can pick up, and there's definitely some more life and survivability that you can pick up as well. For skills, I think for Void Cleave, it's pretty important to pick up the cooldown and to also go down into the bottom left hand corner to get Obliterator ASAP. Obliterator will basically make it so that your next Erasing Strike has a 100% chance to crit as long as you hit with Void Cleave, and so you can just pretty much be guaranteeing tons of critical Erasing Strikes as you level. And also if you're using Gambler's Fallacy, you'll always be critting with Void Cleave when it comes up, and then it makes Erasing Strike basically have a 50-50 chance to crit due to the downside of the legendary. Lunge is there obviously to help us get around. I find this to be the best movement skill for us, mostly because it gives us some immunity as we're dodging in and out. Anomaly is obviously there to crowd control things, but it also does give us critical strike chance, cooldown reduction, leech. It's just overall a really great buff, and if you are spamming it, you can pretty much keep it up all the time. I know that with my gear set up right now, if I hit Anomaly and then trigger it for the second part, the cooldown that I have from both my gear and Anomaly makes it so that I can cast Anomaly before the Anomaly bubble goes away, so you can keep that buff up all the time. The last skill, Volatile Reversal, is pretty much just there to help us deal with our mana costs for Erasing Strike. Erasing Strike actually has a pretty decent mana cost at 50, and so we kind of want to make sure that we have an easy way to recover our mana. And Volatile Reversal basically winds back the clock on both your position and your mana 2 seconds. And so what I do is every single time I cast a Racing Strike, I also follow up with a Volatile Reversal, unless that's probably going to kill me because I was standing in some bad spot, but then generally you probably shouldn't be doing an Erasing Strike at that point. And this pretty much just allows you to completely negate the mana cost of a Racing Strike, since killing things does lower the cooldown of Reversal, so you'll be pretty much having it up all the time when you're map clearing. When bossing, you might want to watch and make sure that you'll have a Reversal for an Erasing Strike before you hit Erasing Strike, but for the most part it should be up most of the time. This also grants you movement speed and kind of can move you around in a little bit of a weird way, but once you get used to it, it's pretty fine. Last thing to note is that Reversal will also make it so that enemies hit by it will take more damage, and so it's actually kind of a damage increaser as well, which is pretty cool. We don't care about the potential attack speed that you can get from Volatile Reversal because we're not really worried about attack speed on this build. We're like a 1-2 hit and then walk around, wait on our cooldowns a little bit, and yeah, or we don't need attack speed for that. Now, mostly in our gear, we're looking for critical strike chance pretty much almost anywhere we can get it. The more crit you can find, the better. They did kind of nerf down the crit that you can get on the Sentinel in this particular patch with the lunge nerfs, which, you know, kind of does hurt a little bit. Obviously, you want to cap all your resistances as well for defense, and then you want to get your endurance up to 60% if you can, and try to cap out the critical strike avoidance just to make your character as tanky as possible. Now, that's obviously not something I've gotten around to doing on this particular character just yet, but it's something that I'm working on. For idols, I'm pretty much looking for melee damage for 4 seconds when a skill echoes. As a Void Knight, whenever you attack, there's a chance that your skills will kind of repeat themselves, and that'll give you more melee damage. The more melee damage pretty much scales all of our damage, both the void and fire sides of our sword, and so that's pretty much the best option. I also get a whole bunch of 2x1 critical strikes, and I try to find at least one that is giving me a chance to gain inspiration on kills with void skills. This gives us a little bit more cooldown reduction, and so once you have everything kind of running, your void cleave should have a 0.19 second cooldown, which pretty much means that you'll probably be getting your sword proc every single time you void cleave, and because you're not playing perfectly, right, and you're not like actually hitting the buttons like the second they come off cooldown most of the time. And so it's going to feel really, really good. All your attacks are going to hit really, really hard. Your Void Cleave is going to come in like a truck. And then a Racing Strike will always crit, which does a really great job of clearing up a bunch of packs or things that are just left over. And then you can just Volatile Reversal right back. The other thing to note is that the melee physical damage while wielding a sword mod, which you can get on both helm and body armor, does help quite a bit. As you remember, we are getting 400% effectiveness from any flat. And this is pretty much the only spot on gear that you can get that. I also go out and recommend getting cooldown on your helmet. It is going to help a lot, and you want to get your overall Void Cleave cooldown about 2 seconds, which does help a lot. I also recommend getting plus level of Erasing Strike on your body armor and plus level of Void Cleave on your relic. Having +2 levels in Void Cleave really is going to help out because there's just a lot of damage options on the tree that you can pick from, and so there's just so much good stuff. I put a link to the build planner for this build in the description below, and if you have any questions, comments, or if this helped you out, let me know in the comments below, and come by the stream.